I gotta talk about the big song because I love you.
Yes.
Did you ever see the song becoming a classic? And you have an interesting story about how the song even came about. So if you want to start there and then tell us if you
Right.
ever thought it would become the classic it is today.
The way it came about, I had a friend of mine who was a carpenter, and he was working on my house. And he started talking about things other than the work that he was doing on the house. And he kept telling me about his son who was, the next coming of Michael Jackson, right? He'd sing, dance, write, play guitar, play piano, whatever. And so after him just repeatedly asking me to, meet his son, I finally, gave in, and I said, okay, and his son came by, and his son was everything he said. So we started writing together. We would write every day, and his son would say, I have to be inspired. Something has to happen, some kind of inspiration for me to write. And I was like, oh no, if you work for Motown, those guys go to work like they punch a clock and they in the room, and Barry Gordy come through checking out what you're doing. You take your lunch, you come back and you work, you punch out. And I said, you couldn't tell Barry Gordy I'm waiting for inspiration, and so he came by one morning, work write as usual for me, and then I didn't want to write because and he's like, why? I said, me and my girl got into it last night, and he's like, well, let's write about it. He said, would you tell Barry Gordy that? And I said, no. But you didn't feel like it because you and your girl had? I said, no. He says, so we wrote about it. But to answer the question, I had no idea, that song would, I think because I'm a songwriter, I hope that all my songs would be legendary and all my songs will be around 50, 60, 100 years. I mean, that's why you try to own the publishing and all that other kind of stuff, because you know that these songs, as they get older and new audiences, new people are born, and they hear the song that they, go out and purchase it or fall in love with it. And so, but I had no idea that it would be, I do these shows, these fairs, and, there's women my age and older, they know the words, and their kids know the words, and their grandkids and they little great grandkids know the words of the song, and they sing it along. And it's like, I don't know, it's humbling, to think that did that in my little, little bedroom. And so I had no idea, but in a way, I guess you could say I did, because I wanted to make sure that I owned it, and that I didn't just record it and let, some big publishing company somewhere control it and everything like that. So I had hopes for it, but to be honest, I never imagined it would, that I'd be 76 years old and people be like, I could go sing anything, songs that, and they'd be, I'm waiting for that concert. I love you. What's that? Oh, oh, oh.